Tech billionaire Marcus Whitfield never imagined his Tuesday morning business interview would end with his $8.2 billion empire crumbling in real time when he decided to humiliate a mere employee on national television. He unknowingly triggered a response that would demonstrate the true meaning of dignity, respect, and the swift consequences that await those who mistake quiet excellence for weakness. At 34, David Thompson still carried himself with the humble confidence of a man who had earned everything through merit rather than inheritance. His weathered hands bore the calluses of countless late nights coding revolutionary algorithms, while his eyes held the patient wisdom of someone who had built his career one breakthrough at a time, never losing faith in the power of hard work over privilege. What began as a routine promotional interview for Whitfield's new AI company would soon become a masterclass in character versus arrogance, intelligence versus ignorance, and the consequences of publicly humiliating someone whose quiet dignity masked extraordinary talent. The billionaire's moment of racist cruelty would collide with a lifetime of excellence, integrity, and the unbreakable support of those who recognize true genius. This is a story about what happens when unchecked privilege meets genuine brilliance on live television, and how 7 minutes of abuse would bring the full weight of public accountability to a corporate empire built on stealing credit from others. It's about the bonds that connect all who have faced discrimination, the values that define true strength, and the swift justice that awaits those who dare to attack America's most talented innovators. Marcus thought he was putting an uppity employee in his place before 12 million viewers. David knew he was about to expose a fraud to the entire nation. Neither man could predict how quickly respect would be restored and justice would be served in the most public way possible. Before we dive into this incredible story of justice, served live on national television, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss stories like this where arrogance meets its match in the most devastating way possible. And let me know in the comments, have you ever witnessed workplace racism that made your blood boil? The studios of Morning America Today occupied the 32nd floor of a gleaming Manhattan skyscraper, where the city's power brokers came to shape public opinion and protect their carefully crafted images. The show's main set radiated professional warmth, with its curved desk positioned to capture the breathtaking view of Central Park, while sophisticated lighting created an atmosphere of intimate conversation despite the presence of 12 cameras. Tuesday morning interviews on Morning America Today followed a predictable rhythm that had remained unchanged for 15 years. Coffee began brewing in the green room at 5:30 a.m. sharp, filling the space with a rich aroma that would calm nervous guests before their national television debuts. The production team assembled by 6, reviewing talking points and ensuring that every technical detail was perfect for the live broadcast that would reach 12 million viewers across the country. The show's reputation had been built on host Sarah Chen's unique ability to make powerful people comfortable enough to reveal their true selves, while maintaining the journalistic integrity to ask the questions that mattered. Politicians, CEOs, and celebrities knew that an appearance on Sarah's show could make or break careers, depending on how well they handled her intelligent but fair questioning style. But beneath the polished veneer of professional journalism, the show carried the weight of representing truth in an era when corporate PR machines worked overtime to control public narratives. Sarah had built her reputation by refusing to accept rehearsed talking points and carefully scripted responses, preferring to dig deeper into the stories that revealed character rather than simply promoting products or agendas. This particular Tuesday morning had been scheduled as a straightforward technology segment, a chance for viewers to learn about groundbreaking artificial intelligence developments that could reshape entire industries. The producers had arranged for Marcus Whitfield, founder and CEO of Whitfield Technologies, to discuss his company's revolutionary new AI breakthrough that was being hailed as the most significant advancement in machine learning in over a decade. David Thompson had been enlisted in the United States workforce at 19, driven by a profound determination instilled by his grandmother, who believed that excellence was the only response to a world that expected him to fail. His grandmother, Dorothy Thompson, had raised him in a small apartment in Detroit after his parents died in a car accident when he was 8, working double shifts as a hospital janitor while ensuring that David understood education was his pathway to a better life. Growing up in a neighborhood where many young black men faced limited opportunities, David had learned the values of persistence, intellectual curiosity, and the importance of proving himself through results rather than words. When his high school guidance counselor told him that MIT was probably out of his league, those words crystallized into an unshakable conviction that he would not only attend the prestigious university, but graduate at the top of his class. For years at MIT had tested every aspect of David's character, from the financial stress of being one of the few scholarship students to the academic pressure of competing with some of the brightest minds in the world. He had earned his computer science degree summa cum laude while working part-time jobs to send money home to his grandmother, never allowing pride to prevent him from doing whatever was necessary to succeed. The Bronze Star equivalent in his field recognition from the Association for Computing Machinery for his undergraduate thesis on machine learning optimization told only part of the story. It represented the countless nights spent in the lab while his classmates attended parties, the innovative approaches he developed to solve problems that had stumped PhD candidates, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that his work was contributing to the advancement of human knowledge. But the academic awards couldn't capture what those years had really cost him. The isolation of being one of the few black students in his program. The constant pressure to prove that he belonged in rooms where others assumed he was there because of affirmative action rather than merit. The weight of representing his entire race in the eyes of professors and classmates who had never worked closely with someone who looked like him. After completing his degree, David had joined Google's artificial intelligence division, where he spent 5 years developing algorithms that would eventually power search improvements used by billions of people daily. His colleagues knew him as a brilliant engineer who could solve complex problems with elegant solutions, a patient mentor who helped junior developers improve their skills, and a man whose handshake was his bond in an industry known for cutthroat competition. His reputation in the tech industry had been built not through self-promotion or corporate politics, but through the consistent delivery of breakthrough innovations that spoke for themselves. The 17 patents he held in machine learning and artificial intelligence represented years of methodical research, creative problem-solving, and the kind of deep technical expertise that couldn't be faked or bought. Marcus Whitfield represented everything David Thompson had encountered throughout his career. The belief that wealth and connections could substitute for competence and hard work, that taking credit for others' achievements was simply smart business, and that some people were simply entitled to success based on their background rather than their contributions. At 52 years old and commanding a personal fortune of $8.2 billion, Marcus had built his reputation as a visionary tech entrepreneur through a carefully orchestrated combination of inherited wealth, strategic acquisitions, and relentless self-promotion. His success story was built on the foundation of his father's manufacturing empire, which had provided the initial capital and industry connections that made his early ventures possible. Marcus had grown up in the rarefied world of elite private schools and Ivy League connections, where success was often predetermined by family wealth rather than individual merit. Where David's parents had instilled values of hard work and integrity before their untimely death, Marcus had learned from his father, Harrison Whitfield III, that the world was divided into those who owned and those who worked, and that the smart money was always on being an owner. Harrison Whitfield had built his fortune through a combination of inherited steel industry holdings and strategic investments in emerging technologies during the 1980s and 1990s. Marcus had started his career with a $50 million loan from his father and access to a network of wealthy investors who viewed backing the Whitfield name as a safe bet rather than a risky venture. The younger Whitfield had never worked for anyone else, never faced rejection from investors who didn't know his family, and never been forced to prove his worth without the safety net of inherited wealth. While David was earning his MIT degree through scholarships and part-time jobs, Marcus was purchasing struggling tech companies and rebranding their innovations as his own revolutionary breakthroughs. His method was sophisticated but fundamentally dishonest. Identify promising technologies developed by cash-strapped startups, acquire the companies at below-market prices, and then present himself as the visionary genius behind the innovations. The original inventors were typically retained as employees, but relegated to implementation roles, while Marcus claimed credit for their creative work. Marcus drove a fleet of luxury vehicles that changed with his mood, a Rolls-Royce Phantom for formal occasions, a McLaren supercar for weekend drives, and a custom Tesla Model S for his environmental image. He wore handmade Italian suits that cost more than most people's annual salaries, and carried himself with the supreme confidence of someone who had never faced serious consequences for his deceptions. What Marcus didn't understand, what his privileged background had never forced him to learn, was the difference between respect and fear, between genuine innovation and corporate theft, between leadership and ownership. He had spent 30 years surrounding himself with people who told him what he wanted to hear, never encountering someone with the knowledge, integrity, and platform to expose his fundamental incompetence. Before we dive into this incredible story of justice served live on national television, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss stories like this where arrogance meets its match in the most public way possible. And let me know in the comments, have you ever witnessed workplace discrimination that made your blood boil? David's morning routine had remained virtually unchanged for 18 months, ever since he had joined Whitfield Technologies and begun working on what would become the most significant breakthrough in artificial intelligence history. Every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, he would arrive at the office precisely at 6:30 a.m., 3 hours before the official start time, to continue perfecting the revolutionary algorithm that Marcus Whitfield would later claim as his own genius creation. The technology that had consumed David's life for the past year and a half represented a fundamental leap forward in machine learning capabilities. Traditional AI systems required massive amounts of training data and consumed enormous computational resources to achieve even basic functionality. David's breakthrough algorithm, which he had privately named Adaptive Neural Architecture, could learn new tasks with minimal data while using 90% less processing power than existing systems. The implications were staggering. Healthcare systems could diagnose rare diseases with just a few examples. Educational platforms could adapt to individual learning styles in real time. Financial institutions could detect fraud patterns that had never been seen before. The technology wasn't just an improvement over existing AI. It was a complete paradigm shift that would reshape how humans interacted with intelligent machines. What made David's achievement even more remarkable was that he had developed it while working under conditions that would have broken lesser talents. Marcus Whitfield's management style involved taking full credit for any breakthrough while subjecting the actual innovators to constant criticism, impossible deadlines, and systematic exclusion from the recognition their work deserved. For 18 months, David had endured late-night calls from Marcus demanding explanations for technical concepts the billionaire couldn't understand, followed by morning meetings where those same concepts were presented to investors as Marcus's personal innovations. The pattern was as predictable as it was demoralizing. David would solve an impossible technical challenge, Marcus would take credit publicly, and then the cycle would repeat with an even more demanding project. The morning of the Morning America Today interview, David had arrived at the studio green room at 7:45 a.m., carrying a folder containing technical documentation that he hoped would finally allow him to explain his work to a national audience. Sarah Chen's producers had specifically requested his presence, recognizing that any meaningful discussion of the AI breakthrough would require someone who actually understood the underlying technology. Marcus had arrived 30 minutes later in his characteristic style, expensive suit, commanding presence, and the absolute confidence of someone who had never been publicly challenged about his technical competence. His preparation for the interview consisted of reviewing marketing talking points prepared by his publicity team, none of which contained any actual technical details about how the AI system functioned. The contrast between the two men in the green room was stark and telling. David sat quietly reviewing his notes, double-checking technical specifications, and preparing clear explanations for complex concepts. Marcus held court with the production staff, regaling them with stories of his business successes while making casual remarks about his brilliant team. that made it clear he viewed his employees as interchangeable resources rather than individual contributors. What neither man knew as they prepared for their national television debut was that Sarah Chun had spent the previous evening conducting her own research into Whitfield Technologies. Her investigative instincts had been triggered by inconsistencies in Marcus's previous interviews, where his technical explanations had been suspiciously vague for someone claiming to be the inventor of revolutionary technology. The stage was set for a confrontation that would expose the fundamental fraud at the heart of Marcus Whitfield's empire, while showcasing the genuine brilliance that he had been exploiting for his own gain. Sarah Chen's entrance onto the Morning America Today set at exactly 8:55 a.m. carried the practiced confidence of someone who had conducted over 3,000 live interviews during her 15-year career. Her signature navy blue blazer and understated jewelry projected the perfect balance of authority and approachability that had made her America's most trusted morning show host, while her warm smile masked the sharp investigative instincts that had exposed countless frauds and charlatans over the years. The studio's atmosphere radiated its usual professional energy, with 12 cameras positioned to capture every angle of what was expected to be a straightforward technology segment. The production crew moved with choreographed precision, adjusting lighting and testing audio levels, while the countdown clock displayed the remaining minutes until the 9:15 a.m. segment would go live to 12 million viewers across the nation. Marcus Whitfield claimed the center chair with the territorial confidence of someone accustomed to dominating every room he entered. His $15,000 Armani suit was perfectly tailored to emphasize his commanding presence, while his Patek Philippe watch caught the studio lights in a way that subtly reminded viewers of his immense wealth. Everything about his positioning and body language communicated supreme confidence in his ability to control the narrative and emerge from the interview with his reputation enhanced. David Thompson took the chair to Marcus's right with a quiet dignity that had characterized his entire career. His simple but well-fitted navy suit and modest tie reflected a man who understood that true authority came from competence rather than costume, while his calm demeanor masked both excitement at finally having a platform to discuss his work and growing unease about sharing that platform with someone who had systematically stolen credit for his innovations. "Good morning, America," Sarah began with her trademark warmth as the red recording lights activated and the interview went live. "I'm Sarah Chun, and this morning we're discussing a technological breakthrough that experts are calling the most significant advancement in artificial intelligence in over a decade. With me are Marcus Whitfield, CEO and founder of Whitfield Technologies, and David Thompson, the company's lead AI engineer who developed this revolutionary system." The introduction was carefully neutral, but David noticed Sarah's subtle emphasis on his role as the actual developer, a detail that Marcus's publicity team had tried to minimize in the pre-interview briefing. For the first time in 18 months, David felt a spark of hope that his contributions might finally receive proper recognition. "Marcus, let's start with you," Sarah continued, her tone perfectly professional, but her eyes already showing the alert focus of a journalist sensing a story. "This artificial intelligence system is being hailed as revolutionary. Can you explain to our viewers what makes it so special?" Marcus leaned forward with practiced confidence, launching into the polished talking points his publicity team had prepared. "Sarah, what we've developed at Whitfield Technologies represents a fundamental breakthrough in machine learning capabilities. This isn't just an incremental improvement, it's a complete paradigm shift that will transform how humans interact with intelligent systems." The response was smooth and authoritative, exactly the kind of corporate speak that had served Marcus well in previous interviews. But Sarah's follow-up question revealed that this interview would be different from the softball sessions he was accustomed to receiving. "That's fascinating, Marcus. Can you walk us through the specific technical innovations that make this possible? Our viewers are increasingly sophisticated about technology, and I think they'd appreciate understanding the actual algorithms and processes involved." David watched Marcus's face carefully as the question landed, recognizing the subtle signs of panic that the billionaire was trying to conceal. After 18 months of watching Marcus take credit for work he didn't understand, David knew exactly what was about to happen, and for the first time since joining the company, he felt a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. The moment of truth was approaching, and 12 million Americans were about to witness the difference between genuine innovation and corporate fraud. Marcus Whitfield's confident expression flickered for just a moment as Sarah's technical question hung in the air, but he quickly recovered with the practiced ease of someone who had built his career on deflecting inquiries that might expose his limitations. His response came wrapped in the kind of corporate buzzwords that had served him well in countless investor meetings and superficial media interviews. "Well, Sarah, the technical details are quite complex," Marcus began, his voice maintaining its authoritative tone while his hands gestured vaguely in the air. "We're talking about advanced neural network architectures, sophisticated learning algorithms, and proprietary optimization techniques that frankly would be difficult for most people to understand. The important thing for your viewers to know is that we've achieved unprecedented efficiency and accuracy in machine learning applications." David Thompson felt his jaw tighten as he listened to the familiar pattern of technical-sounding nonsense that Marcus used whenever pressed for actual details. After 18 months of watching the Billionaire charm investors and journalists with empty phrases, David recognized every evasion technique in Marcus's repertoire. But this time, something was different. Sarah Chin wasn't nodding along with polite acceptance. "I appreciate that the technology is complex, Marcus," Sarah responded with a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "But our audience includes many people in the technology sector. Could you be more specific about the algorithm architectures? For instance, are you using transformer models, convolutional networks, or something entirely novel?" The follow-up question landed like a precision strike, and David watched with growing fascination as Marcus's composure began to crack under pressure from someone who had clearly done her homework. The billionaire's eyes darted briefly toward David, a reflexive look that suggested he was considering deflecting the technical discussion to his employee. "The specifics are proprietary, of course," Marcus replied, his voice carrying a slight edge of irritation that betrayed his growing discomfort. "But I can tell you that we've developed breakthrough approaches to data efficiency and computational optimization that represent years of my personal research and development." David felt something snap inside him as he listened to Marcus claim personal research for work that had consumed 18 months of David's life, including countless nights and weekends spent solving problems that had stumped entire teams of PhD researchers. The casual appropriation of his life's work, delivered with such supreme confidence to 12 million viewers, finally pushed David beyond his capacity for silent endurance. "Actually, Sarah," David interjected quietly, his voice carrying the calm authority of someone who genuinely understood what he was discussing, "I can provide those technical details if you're interested. The system uses a novel hybrid architecture that combines attention mechanisms with adaptive neuroplasticity, allowing for few-shot learning with dramatically reduced computational overhead." The intervention was polite but devastating, demonstrating in 30 seconds the difference between someone who had actually developed the technology and someone who had simply purchased the right to claim credit for it. Marcus's face flushed red as he realized that his carefully constructed narrative was beginning to unravel on live television. "David, I think we should focus on the big picture rather than getting bogged down in implementation details," Marcus said sharply, his tone shifting from corporate smoothness to barely concealed anger. "Technical specifications are important, but what matters is the vision and leadership that made this breakthrough possible." Sarah's eyes sharpened as she sensed the tension between the two men, recognizing the classic dynamic of a fraud being exposed by genuine expertise. Her journalistic instincts kicked into high gear as she realized this interview was about to become something far more significant than a routine technology segment. The moment of explosion was approaching, and neither Marcus nor David could retreat from the collision course they were now traveling. The breaking point arrived with the sudden violence of a dam bursting under pressure. Marcus Whitfield's carefully maintained facade of corporate civility shattered completely as he turned toward David with the cold fury of someone whose authority had been challenged by what he considered an inferior. "Look, Sarah," Marcus snapped, his voice cutting through the studio's professional atmosphere like a blade. I think there's some confusion here about roles and responsibilities. David is a very capable code monkey who helped implement MY vision under MY direction. I don't think we need to get bogged down in technical details that, frankly, people like him are paid to worry about while visionaries like me focus on the big picture. The words hit the studio like physical blows. The term code monkey, a derogatory slur often used to diminish the contributions of programmers, especially those of color, hung in the air with toxic precision. The phrase "people like him" carried implications that made every person in the studio shift uncomfortably, while Marcus's dismissive gesture toward David resembled someone shooing away an annoying pet. David's face remained professionally composed, but Sarah could see the flash of pain and anger in his eyes, the look of a man who had endured similar humiliations countless times, but never on national television in front of 12 million witnesses. The quiet dignity with which he absorbed the attack somehow made it even more devastating to watch. Sarah felt her journalistic objectivity warring with her basic human decency as she processed what had just happened on her show. In 15 years of broadcasting, she had witnessed politicians lie, celebrities melt down, and CEOs make fools of themselves. But she had never seen someone commit career suicide with such spectacular racism on live television. But Marcus wasn't finished. The billionaire's sense of superiority, fed by decades of unchallenged privilege, drove him to dig his grave even deeper. The truth is, Sarah, Marcus continued with the supreme confidence of someone who had never faced consequences for his bigotry. Diversity hires, like David, serve an important purpose. They help companies like mine check boxes, while the real innovators do the actual thinking. I'm sure he's very proud of his contribution to MY breakthrough technology. The studio fell into stunned silence as 12 million Americans witnessed the ugly truth beneath Marcus Whitfield's polished exterior. Social media platforms began exploding with outrage as viewers shared clips of the racist tirade, while in the control room, producers frantically debated whether to cut to commercial or let the disaster continue unfolding. David Thompson sat perfectly still, his military-straight posture unchanged, but something fundamental had shifted in his eyes. The quiet man who had endured 18 months of systematic humiliation in private was about to demonstrate what happened when genuine excellence finally decided to fight back. Sarah Chun looked directly into the camera, her expression carrying the cold fury of a journalist who had just witnessed something that demanded immediate response. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this message," she said calmly, but everyone in the studio knew that nothing would ever be the same again. When Morning America Today returned from commercial break 2 minutes later, Sarah Chen's expression had transformed from professional courtesy to the focused intensity of a prosecutor preparing to destroy a hostile witness. The brief intermission had given her time to process the magnitude of what had just occurred and formulate a response that would be remembered in journalism schools for decades. "I'm sorry, Marcus," Sarah began with deadly calm, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had covered presidential scandals and corporate fraud cases, "but I need to address what just happened before we continue. Did you just refer to your lead engineer, the man who actually created this technology, as a code monkey and a diversity hire?" Marcus's face went pale as he realized the trap he had walked into. His racist outburst, captured on live television and already spreading across social media, had transformed a routine promotional interview into a career-ending disaster. But his privileged arrogance prevented him from recognizing the full scope of his mistake. "Sarah, I think you're mischaracterizing my comments," Marcus stammered, desperately trying to regain control of the narrative. "I have tremendous respect for David's contributions, but leadership requires making difficult decisions about credit and recognition." "Difficult decisions?" Sarah's voice rose with controlled fury. "Marcus, I have David's personnel file right here." She lifted a folder that her producers had rushed to her during the commercial break. MIT summa cum laude, 17 patents in artificial intelligence, led the development teams for 3 previous breakthrough algorithms at Google. "Are you seriously telling our 12 million viewers that this represents a diversity hire?" David watched the exchange with growing amazement as Sarah systematically dismantled Marcus's credibility with surgical precision. For the first time in 18 months, someone with real power was standing up for him against the systematic racism he had endured. Marcus's response revealed the depth of his delusion. Look, credentials are one thing, but actual innovation requires a different kind of vision that, frankly. Stop, Sarah interrupted sharply. Just stop. David, since Marcus seems unable to explain how his own technology works, would you walk our viewers through the revolutionary algorithm you created? The moment of vindication had finally arrived, and David Thompson was about to show America what genuine brilliance looked like when freed from the shadow of fraudulent leadership. David Thompson straightened in his chair with the quiet confidence of someone who had waited 18 months for this exact moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the calm authority of genuine expertise, creating an immediate contrast with Marcus's desperate fumbling that was impossible for viewers to miss. Thank you, Sarah, David began, his tone respectful but unmistakably confident. The breakthrough we achieved is called adaptive neural architecture, or ANA. Traditional AI systems require massive datasets, often millions of examples, to learn new tasks. ANA can achieve the same accuracy with as few as 50 examples, while using 90% less computational power. As David spoke, his entire demeanor transformed. The quiet engineer who had been systematically diminished for over a year revealed himself to be a brilliant communicator who could explain complex concepts with crystalline clarity. His passion for the technology he had created illuminated every word, creating the kind of authentic expertise that no amount of corporate training could fake. The key innovation involves dynamic attention mechanisms combined with meta-learning protocols, David continued, his hands moving gracefully as he illustrated abstract concepts. Instead of fixed neural pathways, the system literally rewrites its own architecture based on the specific problem it's trying to solve. It's like having a brain that can restructure itself for each new challenge. Marcus watched in growing horror as David effortlessly demonstrated the kind of deep technical knowledge that the billionaire had been pretending to possess. Every word David spoke revealed the vast gulf between someone who had actually created revolutionary technology and someone who had simply purchased the right to claim credit for it. David, that's absolutely fascinating, Sarah said, her genuine enthusiasm creating another stark contrast with her earlier coldness toward Marcus. Can you give our viewers a practical example of how this would work in the real world? Certainly, David replied with a slight smile. Imagine a hospital that encounters a rare disease they've never seen before. Traditional AI would need thousands of cases to help with diagnosis. ANA could analyze just a few dozen patient records and immediately start identifying patterns, potentially saving lives by recognizing symptoms that human doctors might miss. The explanation was both technically sophisticated and emotionally compelling, demonstrating exactly the kind of innovation that could genuinely change the world. As David spoke, social media exploded with praise for his brilliance and outrage at how Marcus had treated him. Marcus made one final, desperate attempt to regain control. David, while your technical implementation has been adequate, the strategic vision that made this possible. Marcus, Sarah interrupted with ice-cold authority. Please don't embarrass yourself further. David, continue. The complete role reversal was devastating. The man who had been dismissed as a code monkey was now commanding national attention with his expertise, while the billionaire, who had claimed to be a visionary, sat in humiliated silence, exposed as a fraud before 12 million witnesses. If you're as amazed as I am by David's brilliance and as outraged as I am by Marcus's racist treatment of this genius, hit that subscribe button because this story is about to get even better. The avalanche of consequences is just beginning, and you won't want to miss how this ends. The final devastation came with swift and overwhelming force. As David's explanation concluded, Sarah delivered the killing blow that would end Marcus Whitfield's career forever and expose the depth of his systematic fraud to the entire nation. Marcus, I have one more document here, Sarah announced, holding up papers that her production team had frantically gathered during the commercial breaks. These are patent filings for the adaptive neural architecture technology. Every single patent, all 17 of them, is filed under David Thompson's name, not yours. Would you like to explain to our viewers how you claim to have invented technology that's legally credited to someone else? Marcus's face went ashen as the final pillar of his deception crumbled on live television. The patents, the legal proof of innovation ownership, belonged entirely to the man he had just called a code monkey in front of 12 million Americans. His hands trembled as he realized that his career-ending racist tirade had been delivered while sitting next to the actual genius behind his company's success. The patents are corporate intellectual property arrangements are complex. Marcus stammered, his billion-dollar empire of lies collapsing in real time as viewers watched a master manipulator reduced to incoherent babbling. But the destruction was already complete and accelerating beyond anyone's control. Social media had exploded into a firestorm of outrage, with hashtag CodeMonkey and hashtag David Thompson trending worldwide as millions shared clips of Marcus's racist meltdown. The hashtag Whitfield fraud began trending as tech industry insiders shared stories of Marcus's pattern of stealing credit from talented employees. Within 30 minutes of the interview's conclusion, Whitfield Technologies' stock price began plummeting as investors fled a company built on fraud and racism. Trading was halted twice as the stock lost 60% of its value in under 2 hours. Major clients began canceling contracts, unwilling to associate their brands with Marcus's toxic behavior. The aftermath was swift and merciless. By noon, Marcus had been fired by his own board of directors in an emergency meeting called while he was still in the studio. By evening, the Securities and Exchange Commission announced a formal investigation into his business practices, while the Department of Justice opened a civil rights inquiry into workplace discrimination at his company. Tech industry leaders who had once courted Marcus's favor issued statements condemning his behavior and pledging support for workplace equality. Universities revoked honorary degrees, charity organizations returned his donations, and even his country club revoked his membership. The complete social and professional ostracization was unlike anything the business world had ever witnessed. Within 48 hours, David Thompson had been unanimously appointed CEO of the company, whose founder had tried to humiliate him on national television. His first act was implementing the strongest workplace equality policies in the tech industry and establishing a foundation to support underrepresented innovators. 3 months later, Marcus Whitfield filed for bankruptcy, his reputation destroyed and his fortune depleted by legal settlements to the dozens of employees he had systematically exploited over the years. David Thompson's company, meanwhile, revolutionized 3 different industries with the AI technology he had actually created, generating innovations that improved millions of lives worldwide. The man who thought he could steal credit from a diversity hire learned that genuine talent always rises to the surface, while fraud inevitably collapses under scrutiny. 7 minutes of live television had changed everything. Dignity triumphed over arrogance, truth defeated lies, and David Thompson proved that real genius doesn't need to tear others down to build itself up. This incredible story shows us that justice and truth will always triumph over racism and fraud. The way David handled himself with such grace while being attacked on live television is a masterclass in character and strength. If this story moved you like it moved me, smash that subscribe button for more amazing stories of justice served and underdogs triumphing over arrogance. What do you think about how quickly Marcus's empire collapsed? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever seen someone's true character exposed this dramatically? And remember, in a world where people try to steal credit from others, be like David Thompson. Let your excellence speak for itself and treat everyone with dignity and respect. This incredible story shows us that truth and dignity will always triumph over arrogance and prejudice. The way David handled himself with such grace while being attacked on live television is a masterclass in character and strength. If this story moved you like it moved me, smash that subscribe button for more amazing true stories of justice served and underdogs triumphing. What do you think about how quickly Whitfield's empire collapsed? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever seen someone's true character exposed this dramatically? And remember, in a world where people try to tear others down, be like David Thompson. Let your work speak for itself and treat everyone with dignity and respect.